Now, I'm no prophet, but I do know one thing about you. You are busy. In the whirlwind of youth and children's ministry, you have no problem filling your time. There are innumerable things that you already are or feel that you should be doing. Sunday morning breakout sessions, Friday night outreach groups, small group Bible studies, mentoring programs, provision for children with additional needs, schools ministry, detached work, managing transitions from primary to secondary, preparation for university, writing session content, pastoral conversations, engaging with parents, raising and releasing young leaders, social action projects, recruiting and training volunteers, fundraising, planning events, organising residentials, sharpening your own gifts, going to training conferences, spending personal time with Jesus, and perhaps even spending a spare moment to read Youth and Children's Work magazine. Oh, and then there's the risk assessments to write, the DBS checks to process, the child protection policies to formulate, the finances to reconcile. Man, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Chances are you are busting a gut to make all of this happen. And feeling guilty about those things you wish you were doing, but can't seem to find the time to give proper attention to. If that's you, I feel ya. But there is another way. There is another way. You ready? Let's go. Now, I'm still no prophet, but there's a second thing I know about you and me. You cannot do everything, and you certainly cannot do everything well. In youth and children's ministry, there are so many good things that we could be doing. But here's what I want you to know. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Youth ministry legend Doug Fields expresses it in this way. He says, when a youth worker is talking about how busy she is, you can be certain that something is wrong in her life. Why wrong? God has given us the exact amount of time we need in a given day, week, month, and year. If we're too busy, we're not correctly prioritizing our opportunities and managing the time with which God has entrusted us. Therefore, something must be wrong. I wonder, could it be that you are putting an enormous amount of time, energy, and effort into some things you feel that you should be doing, but have actually not been called to do? And what if, in order to say yes to the God things, you need to say no to some really good things? In his much revered book, Good to Great, the business expert Jim Collins writes about the hedgehog concept. The idea being that in a battle between a fox and a hedgehog, the hedgehog always wins. Why? Because it curls up in a spiky ball so that the fox can't eat it. In other words, it does one thing, but does it brilliantly. The fox, meanwhile, has all kinds of strategies. He sneaks, he pounces, he attacks from the left and the right, from high and low. But no matter his approach, the hedgehog does the one thing it has mastered, and it wins every time. In short, to quote Jim Collins, hedgehogs see what is essential and ignore the rest. In our youth and children's ministry, there are so many good things that we could be doing, and so we tend to strive to do all of them in order to develop a well-rounded ministry. But I want to encourage you, don't strive to be well-rounded. Strive to be sharp. In other words, be more hedgehog. What if we saw what is essential and ignored the rest? How would our ministries change if we learned to do less better? Pastor Andy Stanley writes these words: perhaps the two best kept secrets of leadership are these. 1, the less you do, the more you accomplish. And 2, the less you do, the more you enable others to accomplish. I wonder if by focusing in on the things that God has specifically called you to do, you could free your time, energy, creativity, and competency to deliver on those things really well and create opportunities for others to do the things that you've stopped doing. Everybody wins. Perhaps we would do well to remember that God has given us everything we need to accomplish what He is calling us to do. And that must include time. So how do we then weed out the good activities that diminish our capacity to focus on the God activities? How do we discover the things that we really should go after and give time to and deliver with excellence versus the things that, though are good, we need to stop doing? Well, this bit takes some time, so why don't you press pause, go make yourself a brew, grab a notebook, and spend some time with Jesus and subsequently with your team reflecting on these questions. What are you most deeply passionate about? What are you naturally really good at? Which one thing would have the biggest impact on your ministry if you could accomplish it in the next 6 months? Which one thing would have the most negative impact on your children or young people if you stopped doing it? If your budget was cut by 50%, which activities would you stop and which would you fight to keep going? If your time was cut by 50%, which activities would you continue to do and which would you have to let go of? Properly considered, I believe that these questions have the power to bring to the surface of your life and schedule the things that matter most. Once you've discovered them, focus the first and the best of your time and energy on them. Remember, you cannot do everything. So rather than attempting to do everything, do less and do less better. Now, I'm still no prophet, but I do know this about you. What you are giving your time to is significant. In fact, I cannot conceive of anything more significant that you could give your time to than passing on the gospel to the next generation. So keep going. Don't give up, because what you are doing is important.